Captain Tamin stood before the ancient artifact, his compound eyes reflecting the soft glow of the holographic display. The derelict station floated in the darkness of space, abandoned for thousands of years. His crew had found it by accident, drawn by strange energy readings that didn't match anything in the Galactic Consortium's databases. The map was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Lines of light connected thousands of star systems, showing the vast network of civilizations that once existed. But it was the dark sector that caught Tamin's attention. In that corner of the map, ancient symbols pulsed with a warning that made his antennae twitch with unease. "Captain, the translation is complete," said his second officer, a gentle creature with blue skin and 4 arms. "The symbols say, 'Here be beasts and Death World, Quarantine Zone.'" Tamin moved closer to the display. The precursors had made this map over 30,000 years ago, before their mysterious disappearance. They had been the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever known. If they marked something as dangerous, it was worth paying attention to. "What system is that?" Tamin asked, pointing at the center of the quarantine zone. His officer checked the coordinates. "According to our star charts, it's a small yellow star with several planets. The third planet from the star appears to be in the habitable zone, but there's no record of anyone visiting it. Ever." Tamin felt a thrill run through his body. In all his years exploring space, he had never found anything truly unknown. The consortium had mapped almost everything. But this was different. This was a mystery that had waited for millennia to be solved. "Set a course," he ordered. "I want to see what scared the precursors." His crew exchanged nervous glances, but no one argued. They trusted their captain even when he made dangerous decisions. Meanwhile, on the third planet from that yellow star, Dr. Hai-Jin checked her equipment one more time. The launch was scheduled for tomorrow, and she couldn't afford any mistakes. Earth's first faster-than-light ship was ready. Humanity was about to take its first step into the larger universe. She ran her hand along the smooth hull of the ship. They had named it Mugunghwa, after Korea's national flower. It seemed fitting for humanity's first bloom into space. "Nervous?" asked Commander Ji-won, walking up beside her. The military officer had been assigned to protect the mission and its crew. She was practical, strong, and didn't waste words. "Excited," Hee-jin replied with a smile. "We have no idea what's out there. For all we know, we could be alone in the universe." Ji-won gave her a skeptical look. "With billions of stars? I doubt it. But whether anyone wants to meet us is another question." The next morning, the launch went perfectly. The Mugunghwa lifted off from Earth's surface, climbed through the atmosphere, and activated its experimental FTL drive. For one brief moment, Hee-jin felt like she was being pulled apart and put back together. Then the sensation passed, and they were somewhere else. Stars filled the view screen, but they were different stars, constellations that no human had ever seen before. They had done it. They had traveled faster than light. "Getting some readings," said Young-sik, the ship's engineer. He was young but brilliant, always finding solutions to impossible problems. "There's a station nearby. It's artificial. Someone built it." The crew fell silent. They weren't alone. The universe had other civilizations. Before anyone could celebrate, alarms started blaring. 3 ships appeared around them, each larger than the Mugunghwa. They had smooth, organic-looking hulls that gleamed in the starlight. "We're being scanned," Young-sik reported, his fingers flying over his console. "Multiple frequencies. They're definitely looking at us." Ji-won moved to the weapons station, then paused. "Should we power up defenses?" Hee-jin shook her head. "No, we came here in peace. Let's show them that." She opened a communication channel and spoke in English, knowing the words probably meant nothing to whoever was listening. But tone mattered. Intent mattered. "This is Dr. Hee-jin of Earth. We come in peace. We mean no harm." The response came in a burst of sounds that the computer couldn't translate. But the tone was clear enough. It was fear. The 3 ships didn't attack, but they didn't leave either. They kept their distance, circling the Mugunghwa like wolves around a campfire. Far away on the consortium's central station, alarms were ringing. The monitoring station near the quarantine zone had detected something impossible. A ship had emerged from the forbidden sector. The beasts were awake. The Death World had achieved space travel. High Counselor Thexera spread her wings in distress. She was old even by her species' long-lived standards. She had studied history, including the ancient warnings about the quarantine zone, No one had taken them seriously for thousands of years. The precursors were gone, and their warnings seemed like myths, but now those myths were becoming real. "How many ships?" she asked. "Just one, Counselor. It's small, primitive by our standards, but it came from the third planet. The one the precursors marked as most dangerous. Texara made a decision. Send diplomatic ships. Do not engage. Do not threaten. We need to know what we're dealing with. And call the council together. Everyone needs to know about this." Back on the Harmonious Wing, Captain Taman received an urgent message. A ship had been detected coming from the quarantine zone, the very place he was traveling to investigate. "How long until we reach the system?" he asked. 2 days at our current speed." Taman thought for a moment. "Increase to maximum speed. I want to see these beasts before anyone else does." His crew obeyed, though fear showed in their movements. They were heading toward the most dangerous place in the galaxy, or at least the most dangerous place according to ancient legends. Commander Jiwan watched the alien ships through the view screen. They maintained their distance, neither attacking nor welcoming. It was a standoff, and she didn't like standoffs. They were unstable, unpredictable. "What do you think they want?" asked He-Jin. "I think they're trying to decide if we're a threat," Jiwan replied. "The question is, what will convince them we're not?" Youngsik spoke up from his station. "I'm picking up more ships, lots more. Whatever we triggered, it's got everyone's attention." He-Jin took a deep breath. Humanity's first contact with alien life, and it was already complicated. She thought about Earth, about all the people waiting to hear news from the stars. She thought about the responsibility on her shoulders. "Keep trying to communicate," she ordered. "Use every frequency. Math, music, pictures. Something has to work. We didn't come all this way just to stare at each other through windows." The universe had just become much more interesting and much more dangerous. The beasts from the death world had finally emerged, and the galaxy would never be the same. The diplomatic ship arrived within hours. It was larger than the patrol vessels, but less threatening in design, with smooth curves and gentle colors. A single occupant appeared on the Mugunghwa's view screen, and the human crew got their first clear look at alien life. The being was tall and thin, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. Its head was elongated, and where eyes should be, there were clusters of small crystal-like structures. When it spoke, the computer worked furiously to find patterns in the sounds. Dr. Hae-Jin spoke slowly and clearly. "We are from Earth. We are explorers. We come in peace." The alien tilted its head, and the computer finally produced a translation. The voice was mechanical but understandable. "You are from the Forbidden Zone, the Death World. How are you alive?" Hae-Jin frowned. "Death World? Earth is our home. We've lived there for hundreds of thousands of years." The alien seemed to shudder. "Impossible. The records say nothing can survive there. The gravity alone should crush you. The predators should have eaten your ancestors. The weather should have killed everything." Commander Jiwan stepped forward. "Earth is challenging, but we adapted. We survived. We're here now, and we want to meet our neighbors peacefully." The alien's crystals flickered with colors the humans couldn't interpret. "I must report this to the council. Please remain here. Do not approach any stations or planets. The consortium must decide how to proceed." The connection ended, leaving the human crew in confused silence. "Did that seem strange to anyone else?" Youngsik asked. "They're acting like we're dangerous." "We are dangerous," Jiwan said quietly. "At least we could be. Any species that can build starships can build weapons. They're being cautious, smart." He-Jin wasn't so sure. The alien's reaction felt like more than caution. It felt like fear. But why would anyone fear them? Humans were just people trying to find their place in the universe. A message arrived from Earth. Director Hyunwoo's face appeared on the screen, and he looked worried. "We've been monitoring your situation. The government is sending Ambassador Suwa on a military transport. She'll reach you in 3 days. Until then, maintain peaceful contact, but don't reveal too much about Earth or our capabilities. We don't know who we're dealing with yet." The next 3 days were tense. More ships arrived, keeping a careful distance. The humans tried various forms of communication, and slowly, understanding grew. The computer learned the alien languages, and the aliens learned some English. What the humans learned worried them. The galaxy was old, peaceful, and thought Earth was a nightmare world. The consortium had thousands of member species, but none of them came from planets like Earth. Their worlds were gentle, stable, safe. They had evolved without constant danger. When Ambassador Su-Ah arrived, she brought both hope and concern. She was a skilled diplomat, trained to handle difficult negotiations. She was also compassionate, able to see things from other perspectives, but even she was surprised by what they faced. "They think we're monsters," she said after reviewing all the communications. "Not because of what we've done, but because of where we're from." A formal meeting was arranged. The humans would board a consortium station for face-to-face talks. Jiwan wanted to refuse, seeing it as too dangerous, but Su-Ah insisted. "We need to show them we're reasonable beings," she said. "Fear only grows in darkness. Let's bring some light." The station was enormous, larger than any structure humanity had built. When they docked, a delegation of aliens waited for them. There were 6 different species, each more unusual than the last. One looked like a walking plant. Another seemed to be made of living crystal. A third floated in a tank of purple liquid. But it was their reaction to the humans that was most striking. When Ambassador Su-Ah stepped onto the station, the aliens moved backward. Not obviously, but enough to notice. They were afraid. Su-Ah smiled warmly and extended her hand. "Ambassador Su-Ah of Earth, it's an honor to meet you." The lead alien, who introduced himself as Representative Krell, looked at her hand with confusion. After a moment's hesitation, he reached out his own appendage, which looked more like a tentacle than a hand. They touched, and Su-Ah gently shook in the human custom. Krell made a sound of surprise. "Your grip strength is remarkable." Su-Ah had barely squeezed it all. She realized with growing understanding that humans were physically stronger than these beings, much stronger. The meeting room was designed for the aliens' comfort, which meant it was too warm and too bright for the humans. But they endured without complaint. The discussion began with basic questions about Earth and its people. "How many intelligent species evolved on your world?" asked a crystalline being named Fexara. "Just one," Heejin replied. "Humans. There were other species similar to us in the past, but we're the only ones left." The aliens exchanged what might have been glances. "One species achieved dominance over all others?" "We didn't have to fight for dominance," Heejin explained. "The other species died out naturally. Climate changes mostly. Earth's climate shifts dramatically over time." More exchanged looks. Earth's natural climate was violent by their standards. Commander Jiwan showed them images of Earth. Mountains, oceans, forests, cities. The aliens watched with what seemed like horror. One of them pointed at an image of a lion. "What is that creature?" "A lion. An apex predator from Africa. And it lives on the same world as you?" "Yes, we share Earth with many predators. Lions, tigers, bears, sharks, crocodiles. Lots of species." The plant-like alien made a sound like wind through leaves. "How have you survived?" Jiwan smiled. "We're very good at surviving." That was when Captain Tae-min arrived. His ship had finally reached the area, and he had requested permission to join the meeting. Unlike the other aliens, Tae-min showed no fear. His compound eyes studied the humans with open curiosity. "Fascinating," he said, approaching Su-Ah. "You're smaller than I expected. The precursor records made you sound like giants." Su-Ah blinked. "You've seen records about us?" "From the precursors?" Tae-min explained about the ancient map and the warnings. As he spoke, Su-Ah's expression changed from confusion to understanding. "You thought Earth was quarantined to protect the galaxy from us? What other reason would there be?" Tae-min asked. Before Su-Ah could answer, an alarm sounded. Young Sik's voice came through the communication device. "Ambassador, we have a situation. A consortium military patrol just tried to board the Mugunghwa. Commander Jiwan's security team stopped them, but it got physical. One of the aliens was injured. The room erupted in chaos. The diplomatic aliens backed away from the humans, their fear now obvious. Representative Krell's voice was high and stressed. "You attacked our people." "Your people tried to board our ship without permission." Jiwan shot back, her own voice rising. "We defended ourselves." Su-Ah raised her hands, trying to calm everyone. "Please, let's not overreact. I'm sure this was a misunderstanding, but the damage was done." The meeting ended abruptly, and the humans were escorted back to their ship. As they left, Su-Ah heard the aliens talking in worried voices about containment, about military options, about the threat from the Death World. Back on the Mugunghwa, Young Sik explained what had happened. The alien security team had tried to scan the ship's computer systems. Jiwan's people had physically blocked them. In the struggle, one alien had been pushed against a wall. To the humans, it had been a minor scuffle. To the aliens, it had been a violent assault. How badly was he hurt? Sua asked. Broken arm. Maybe a cracked rib. The medical team took him away pretty quickly. Sua closed her eyes. A broken bone from a simple push. These aliens were fragile in ways humans weren't used to, and now they had another reason to fear humanity. Captain Taemin sent a private message to Heejin that evening. I don't believe you're monsters. But I need to understand. Why did the precursors fear you? Heejin thought carefully before responding. Maybe they didn't fear us. Maybe they feared for us. Or maybe they feared what we might become. We don't know. But we're not monsters, Captain. We're just people trying to find our place in the stars. Taemin's response came quickly. Then help me prove that to the galaxy. Because right now they're preparing for war. The Consortium Council chamber was built to impress. It floated in the center of a massive station, visible from every angle through transparent walls that looked out into space. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered there, their varied forms creating a rainbow of shapes and colors. High Counselor Thexara called the emergency session to order. Her wings were spread wide, a sign of serious concern among her people. The beings from the quarantine world have made contact. We must decide how to respond. The chamber erupted with voices, clicks, whistles, and sounds that human ears couldn't even process. Captain Taemin stood near the back, observing. He had been granted permission to attend as the discoverer of the ancient map. Beside him, through a video link, Dr. Heejin watched from the Mugunghwa. A representative from a species that looked like animated water spoke first. We should isolate them immediately, return them to their world, and establish a blockade. The precursors warned us for a reason, but we don't know the reason, Taemin objected. The precursors left warnings, not explanations. Maybe we're misunderstanding their intent. Their intent was clear enough, said another representative, this one resembling a floating jellyfish. Death world, quarantine, here be beasts. What else could it mean? Thexara raised a wing for silence. Captain Taemin has requested permission to study the precursor records more thoroughly. He believes there may be information we've overlooked. I am inclined to grant this request. Not everyone agreed, but the council voted to allow it. Taemin would have access to the ancient archives, and Heejin would join him. Perhaps together they could find the truth. The archives were kept in a facility orbiting a dead world, far from any inhabited systems. It was a place of memory and silence. Ancient data crystals lined the walls, each containing centuries of information. When Heejin arrived, she was struck by the age of everything. These records were older than human civilization, older than human agriculture. They dated back to a time when her ancestors were still learning to make fire. Taemin greeted her with obvious enthusiasm. I've been going through the initial survey reports. The precursors sent scouts to hundreds of systems. Earth was one of them. They found the Earth files together. The first thing they saw was a warning label, pulsing in urgent colors. When Taemin opened the file, they understood why. The scout report began with technical data. Gravity, 1G, atmosphere, nitrogen-oxygen with traces of other gases. Temperature range, extreme. Weather patterns, violent. Seismic activity, high. Volcanic activity, significant. This is just describing Earth, Heejin said. None of this seems that unusual. To you, perhaps, Taemin replied. But look at the comparison. Most life-bearing worlds have gravity between 0.4 and 0.7 G. Weather that barely changes, stable geology. Your world is at the extreme end of every measurement. The report continued with observations of Earth's life. The precursors had visited during an ice age, when massive glaciers covered much of the northern continents. They described the megafauna with clear terror. Giant sloths, saber-toothed cats, cave bears, woolly mammoths, and dire wolves. One passage made Heejin's breath catch. Observed pack predators hunting in coordinated groups. They communicated with howls and body language. They isolated prey from herds and pursued it for hours until it collapsed from exhaustion. Recommendation: avoid all contact. These are demons. They were describing wolves, Heejin said softly. And this, Taemin pointed at another passage, observed bipedal creatures hunting the giant herbivores, used primitive tools, demonstrated complex planning and communication. Despite physical weakness compared to prey, succeeded through persistence and intelligence. Note: these primitives hunt the demons for food. The scout team had watched early humans hunting. They had seen humanity's ancestors as the most dangerous predators on a world full of danger. More files revealed more details. The precursors were peaceful beings who had evolved on a world with almost no predators. Violence was foreign to them. The concept of hunting for survival was disturbing. Earth, where every creature was both hunter and prey, was beyond their understanding. "Look at this," Taman said, opening another file. It showed a video recording. The quality was poor after 30,000 years, but they could make out shapes. A precursor scout team was running through a forest. Behind them, a pack of dire wolves gave chase. The scouts were faster with their technology, but the wolves didn't give up. They chased for hours, coordinating their movements, cutting off escape routes. Eventually, the scouts had to use weapons to drive them off. One scout was injured, and the team leader made the final log entry. "This world is classified as Class 12 Death World. Maximum danger rating. No further contact recommended. If the primitive bipeds survive and develop space travel, observe from distance only. They are beasts among beasts, and this world will forge them into something we cannot predict." Yijin sat back, processing this information. They weren't trying to protect the galaxy from us. They were observing our development. They wanted to see what we would become. "Maybe," Taman said. "Or maybe they feared both possibilities, that you would be destroyed by your world, or that you would conquer it and become something powerful." A historian named Krennock joined them on the third day of research. He was an amphibious being who specialized in precursor culture. He had reviewed their findings and wanted to add context. "The precursors were dying when they made these records," Krennock explained. "They faced an enemy they couldn't defeat through peaceful means. Their civilization fell, but they left warnings and messages hoping future species would learn from their mistakes." "What enemy?" Heejin asked. "We don't know. The records are incomplete, but there are references to something they called the Devourers, beings that consumed civilizations. This new information changed everything." Taman and Hyejin searched through more files, looking for anything related to the Devourers. What they found was disturbing. The Devourers were described as entities from beyond normal space. They fed on biological life, consuming entire worlds. The precursors had tried negotiating, reasoning, and peaceful resistance. Nothing worked. By the time they realized they needed to fight, it was too late. In their final years, the precursors had searched desperately for something that could survive what they could not. They explored thousands of worlds, looking for species that had evolved in harsh conditions, species that knew how to fight, how to survive against impossible odds. They found Earth. "Here," Krennock pointed at a fragment of text. "This is from a precursor commander's personal log. We have found a world that refuses to surrender to death. Everything there fights to survive. The storms don't stop the life. The predators don't eliminate the prey. Even the primitive bipeds, weak and slow by all measures, persist where stronger species would fail. If anything in this galaxy can survive the Devourers, it will come from that world. We must protect it until it is ready." Hyejin felt something shift in her understanding. The quarantine wasn't a prison. It was a sanctuary. The precursors had been protecting humanity, giving them time to develop naturally, hoping that one day humans would be strong enough to face what the precursors could not. "We need to tell the council," she said, but Taman was still reading through files. "Wait, there's more." The precursors left probes monitoring several systems, including Earth. The probes send automatic updates every 1,000 years. And according to this, the last update was recent. Very recent. He opened the file, and what they saw made their blood run cold. The probe had detected something. Unusual readings from beyond the galaxy's edge. Energy signatures that matched precursor descriptions of the Devourers. "When was this update?" Hyejin asked, though part of her already knew the answer. 6 months ago, Taemin replied. "The Devourers are coming back." They rushed to contact the council, but communication was difficult. Many council members didn't want to hear about ancient enemies and precursor warnings. They wanted to focus on the immediate problem of the humans. Professor Minho joined the conversation from Earth, connected through quantum communication. He was humanity's leading expert on evolution and adaptation. After hearing the precursor reports, he had his own analysis to share. "The precursors were right about us," Minho said. "Humans evolved under constant pressure. Predators, disease, climate change, competition with other human species. We survived through adaptation, innovation, and sheer stubbornness. We learned to use tools because we were weak. We learned to cooperate because we were few. We learned to plan because we couldn't rely on instinct alone. He showed comparative data between humans and the consortium species. The differences were stark. Humans could endure higher gravity, wider temperature ranges, and longer periods without food or water. Human immune systems were aggressive, fighting off diseases that would kill most aliens. Human pain tolerance was significantly higher. But the most important difference, Minho continued, is psychological. Humans don't give up. It's hardwired into our survival instinct. When we're threatened, we don't freeze or flee unless necessary. We fight, we adapt. We find a way forward. The presentation was sent to every council member. Some found it encouraging. Others found it terrifying. The debate raged on about whether humanity was a potential ally or a threat that needed containment. Ambassador Sua knew she was taking a risk, but desperate times called for bold moves. She convinced Director Hyun Woo to allow a delegation of consortium representatives to visit Earth. If the galaxy was afraid of humanity, then let them see humanity for themselves. Not everyone on Earth agreed with this decision. Admiral Kyung-soo, who commanded Earth's newly formed Space Defense Force, thought it was dangerous. We're showing them our home, our weaknesses, our population centers. If they decide to attack, we've given them everything they need. And if we don't, Sua countered, they'll imagine something worse than the truth. Fear of the unknown is more dangerous than knowledge. The delegation arrived 3 weeks later, 12 representatives from different worlds, each wearing protective gear designed for Earth's gravity. Captain Taemin came as well, his curiosity overriding his caution. Historian Krennak joined them, eager to compare ancient records with modern reality. They landed at a facility in Korea, chosen for its beauty and its representation of human civilization. Mountains rose in the distance and carefully maintained gardens surrounded the buildings. To the humans, it was peaceful. To the aliens, it was overwhelming. The gravity, one representative gasped, even with mechanical assistance. How do you move in this? We grew up in it, Hyejin explained gently. Our bones are denser, our muscles stronger. This is normal for us. A representative named Rix Ellen, a reptilian being with sharp intelligence and sharper political instincts, looked around suspiciously. This seems carefully arranged. Show us your real world, not a performance. Commander Jiwon smiled. Of course. What would you like to see? They started with a nature preserve, home to Earth's wildlife. The first enclosure held wolves, descendants of the very species that had terrified the precursor scouts. The aliens, pressed against the viewing window watching the pack interact. They're smaller than I expected, Taemin observed. These are actually large for wolves, Hyejin said. But yes, the dire wolves from the Ice Age were bigger. Evolution changes things. One of the wolves approached the window and stared at the aliens with golden eyes. Several representatives backed away quickly. It's studying us, Krennak whispered, evaluating us as potential prey. More likely evaluating you as potential threats, Jiwon said. Wolves are cautious around things they don't understand. The next enclosure held lions, then bears, then tigers. With each viewing, the aliens became more disturbed. These weren't just predators. They were massive, powerful, perfectly designed killing machines, and they shared a planet with humans. A human child's voice came from nearby, excited and loud. Daddy, look at the lions. Can we see them eat? The delegation turned to see a human family approaching. The child, maybe 6 years old, pressed her face against the glass with obvious delight. She showed no fear at all. Your younglings aren't afraid of these creatures? Asked a plant-like representative. Why would they be? The child's father replied. They're behind strong barriers, and they're beautiful animals. Beautiful. The word struck the aliens hard. Humans saw these apex predators as beautiful. They moved to the marine exhibit next. A massive tank held sharks, their sleek forms gliding through the water. Again, human visitors watched with appreciation rather than terror. Children laughed and pointed. Adults took pictures. We should show them house cats, young Six suggested with a grin. He had joined the tour as technical support. What are house cats? Taemin asked. small predators that humans keep in their homes as companions. The aliens stared at him. You keep predators in your homes on purpose? They're small, Youngsik said. Usually harmless. They hunt mice and birds. We find them comforting. That evening they gathered at a facility where Jiwoo, a xenobiologist, gave a presentation on Earth's evolution. She explained the concept of predator and prey, of ecosystems built on competition and survival. She showed footage of nature, red in tooth and claw. The aliens watched in horrified fascination. On their worlds, violence was rare. Predation was almost unknown. The idea of an ecosystem based on constant death and rebirth was alien to them in the deepest sense. But surely, Rixellen said, your own species doesn't engage in this violence. Jiwoo hesitated. Honesty was important, but so was context. Humans evolved as hunters. For most of our history, we survived by hunting animals and gathering plants. Sometimes we competed violently with other human groups for resources. War and conflict have been part of our history. Have been? Rixellen pressed. Past tense? We've worked hard to move beyond that, Sua interjected. We still have conflicts, but we resolve most of them peacefully now. We're not perfect, but we're trying to be better. The next day brought more surprises. The aliens wanted to see human physical capabilities. Private Dae Hyun, a soldier in Earth's Defense Force, volunteered to demonstrate. He started with basic exercises, push-ups, pull-ups, running, things that seemed simple to humans but impossible to most aliens. Dae Hyun could lift his own body weight repeatedly. He could run for kilometers without stopping. His movements were fast and precise. This is standard training? Taemin asked, amazed. Basic, Jiwon confirmed. Our soldiers train much harder than this. Then Daehyun demonstrated combat techniques. Strikes, blocks, throws. He moved with controlled violence, showing what a human could do if threatened. The demonstration was carefully choreographed to avoid injury, but the implications were clear. Humans were capable fighters. One alien tried to match Daehyun's push-ups and collapsed after 3. Their exoskeleton wasn't enough to compensate for the difference in natural strength. No wonder you survived your world, Krennak said quietly. You had to become this strong or die. The afternoon brought an unexpected incident. Ensign Da-un, a young pilot visiting from the Mugunghwa, was showing some aliens Earth's recreational activities. She suggested arm wrestling as a friendly competition. It seemed harmless. Da-un was small for a human, barely 60 kilograms. Her opponent was a consortium officer who outweighed her by half. They clasped hands across a table, and someone counted down. Da-un won in 3 seconds. The alien's appendage bent at an unnatural angle, and they screamed in pain. Medical personnel rushed forward. The appendage was broken in 3 places, and 2 joints were dislocated. Da-un was horrified. I barely pushed. I was being gentle. But gentle by human standards was overwhelming force to most aliens. The incident was recorded and sent throughout the consortium. To many, it confirmed their fears. Humans were dangerous, even when trying to be friendly. Admiral Kyung-soo called an emergency meeting. This is getting worse, not better. They're more afraid of us now than before. Because they didn't understand before, Sua argued. Now they're beginning to see the truth. Yes, it's frightening, but at least it's honest. That night, the delegation was treated to a traditional Korean dinner. The humans had carefully chosen mild foods, nothing too spicy or unusual. But even mild human food was intense for alien palates. One representative tried kimchi and needed immediate medical attention. The spices, harmless to humans, caused a severe reaction. Another couldn't handle the concept of fermented foods, seeing them as partially rotted. A third found the rice too dense and hard to digest. How do you eat this? One asked, struggling with chopsticks. Practice, Heejin said with a smile. Lots of practice. The cultural exchange continued for days. The aliens watched human entertainment, tried human sports, and experienced human weather. A light rain sent most of them running for shelter. A gust of wind knocked 2 of them over, but they also saw human kindness. They saw children playing together, sharing toys without fighting. They saw strangers helping each other, offering assistance without expectation of reward. They saw communities working together to solve problems. Dr. Yoon-ji, a human psychologist, spent hours talking with the delegates about human nature. Yes, we're capable of violence, but we're also capable of incredible compassion. We protect the weak. We care for the sick. We adopt children who aren't related to us. We risk our lives to save others, even members of different species. She showed them videos of humans rescuing animals from danger, firefighters saving cats from trees, veterinarians healing wounded wildlife, people dedicating their lives to protecting endangered species. You willingly put yourselves in danger to save other species? Taemin asked, confused. Why? Because it matters, Yoonji said simply. Because we can. Because leaving something to suffer when we could help feels wrong. On the final day, something unexpected happened. A small earthquake struck the region, magnitude 4.5. To the humans, it was barely noticeable. Buildings shook slightly. Some items fell from shelves. People checked the news and went back to their activities. The aliens were terrified. Their worlds didn't have earthquakes. The ground was stable, predictable, safe. This sudden reminder that Earth's very planet was violent shook them more than anything else. You live with this? Rixellen asked, trembling. The ground itself tries to kill you? It's just geology, Young-sik explained. Tectonic plates moving. It happens. Buildings are designed to handle it. Casualties are rare. But to the aliens, it was one more proof that Earth was a death world. The gravity, the predators, the weather, and now the unstable ground. Everything about this planet was hostile to life. Yet humans thrived here, not just survived. The Consortium Council was divided. Half wanted to quarantine Earth immediately, to keep the dangerous humans contained. The other half argued for caution, for more study, for understanding before action. The debate had raged for weeks with no resolution in sight. Then the message arrived from the outer rim. A listening post had detected ships, hundreds of them, moving toward Consortium space. The energy signatures matched nothing in their databases, but they matched something in the precursor records. The Devourers were coming. High Counselor Thexara called an emergency session. The chamber filled with frightened representatives, their fear almost tangible. For thousands of years, the galaxy had been at peace. War was something from history books, from the dark times before the Consortium. Now it was returning, and they weren't ready. We have 2 months, Thexara announced, her wings spread in distress. Maybe 3. Then the Devourers will reach our outer colonies. We need to decide what to do. Senator Rixellen stood, his scales gleaming under the chamber lights. We must prepare our defenses. Evacuate vulnerable worlds. Focus all resources on military production. We don't have a military, another representative pointed out. We have patrol ships and police forces. Nothing designed for real warfare. The chamber fell silent. It was true. The Consortium had no weapons designed to kill. Their ships could disable and capture. They could defend against pirates and accidents. But against a force that wanted to destroy them, they had nothing. Captain Taemin spoke up from his place near the back. The humans have a military. They understand warfare. Perhaps we should ask for their help. The suggestion caused an uproar. Ask the beasts for help? Someone shouted. They might join the Devourers. We'd be inviting our own destruction. Or, Taemin said calmly, we might be inviting our salvation. Before anyone could respond, Ambassador Sua's face appeared on every screen in the chamber. She had requested to speak to the Council directly from Earth. Honorable representatives, she began, we have monitored your situation. We know about the approaching threat. We have studied the precursor records. We understand what you're facing. Thexara gestured for her to continue. Earth offers its assistance, not as conquerors, not as saviors who demand payment, but as neighbors who see a threat to their new friends. We have weapons. We have ships. We have soldiers trained for combat. We offer all of it to defend Consortium space. Why? Rixellen demanded. Why would you help us? We've treated you with suspicion and fear. We've debated imprisoning your entire species. Why would you fight for us? Sua's expression was serious but kind. Because it's the right thing to do. Because we're capable of helping, and watching others suffer when we could act would be wrong. Because we hope that by standing with you now we can build trust for the future. And if we refuse? Someone asked. Then we'll defend ourselves in our own space and wish you luck in yours, Sua said. But the Devourers won't stop at the consortium border. Eventually they'll reach Earth. Better to face them together than alone. Director Hyunwoo appeared beside Sua on the screen. We've prepared a demonstration. Dr. Haijin and Captain Taemin have found something in the precursor archives. Something that might help us all understand what we're facing. The scene shifted to the ancient archive facility. Haijin and Taemin stood before a massive holographic display showing precursor data. Historian Krennak was with them, along with several other scientists. We found detailed records of the precursor war with the Devourers, Haijin explained. The precursors tried everything. Negotiation, retreat, peaceful resistance. Nothing worked. The Devourers don't communicate. They just consume. Taemin activated a video file. It showed a precursor world under attack. Ships descended from the sky. And what emerged from them was unlike anything in consortium experience. The Devourers were organisms, but wrong somehow. They moved like liquid metal, absorbed anything biological and multiplied exponentially. The precursors finally tried to fight, Heejin continued, but they had no experience with warfare. Their weapons were improvised, their tactics non-existent. By the time they learned how to resist, most of their civilization was gone. Krennak spoke next. We found something else. A message from the last precursor commander. He made a recording before his world fell. Would you like to hear it? At Texara's gesture, the recording played. The precursor's voice was translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. To whoever finds this message, we have failed. The Devourers have won. Our civilization, 50,000 years of art and science and peace, is ending. We made mistakes. We believed that intelligence and reason could solve any problem. We believed that violence was primitive, something evolved beings should leave behind. We were wrong. Not about the value of peace, but about the cost of being unprepared for war. The universe contains beings that don't value life, that can't be reasoned with. Against such enemies, gentleness is not virtue. It is suicide. We have left markers throughout the galaxy, warnings, records, and one other thing. We found a world where life fights constantly for survival, a death world where even the dominant species knows violence intimately. We protected that world, hoping that one day its people might become what we could not. If you are hearing this, the Devourers have returned. Find the death world, find its people. They will understand what must be done. Trust them, not because they are peaceful, but because they have learned to balance strength with wisdom. They know how to fight, and more importantly, they know when to fight. The recording ended. The council chamber was silent. Dr. Yoon-ji appeared on the screen next, joining the presentation. I've studied human psychology extensively. Yes, humans are capable of violence, but we're also capable of incredible restraint. We've developed moral codes, ethics, laws. We've learned to channel our aggressive instincts into protection rather than conquest. General Wan Shik, Earth's military strategist, took over. We've prepared a defense plan. It uses human tactics combined with consortium technology. We can hold the line against the Devourers, but only if we work together. He displayed star charts showing defensive positions, fleet movements, and contingency plans. The strategy was complex but comprehensible. More importantly, it looked like it might actually work. The key, Wan Shik explained, is to meet them far from inhabited worlds, slow them down, force them to commit resources, then hit them where they're weak. It's not about one big battle. It's about making every step forward cost them more than they can afford. Young-Sik added the technical aspects. Human engineering can adapt consortium ships for combat. We can add weapons, strengthen shields, improve maneuverability. We've already designed the modifications. With your permission, we can begin implementation immediately. The presentation ended and Ambassador Sua reappeared. The choice is yours. We won't force our help on you. But please understand, we're offering this genuinely. We know you're afraid of us. We understand why. But right now you need what we are. You need survivors. You need fighters. You need people who refuse to give up even when the odds are impossible. Texara looked around the chamber. She could see representatives struggling with the decision. Fear of humanity warred with fear of the Devourers. Pride fought with practicality. A vote, she announced, all in favor of accepting Earth's alliance. The vote was close. Very close. But slowly, hands and appendages and other voting mechanisms rose. The majority was small, but it was enough. Earth's alliance is accepted, Thexara declared. May the ancestors guide us all. The next 2 months were chaos. Human military advisors spread throughout consortium space, training alien crews, upgrading ships, establishing defensive positions. At first, the cultural clash was intense. Human drill sergeants tried to toughen up alien soldiers who had never experienced real hardship. Human weapons specialists installed systems designed to kill, which horrified many consortium members. But gradually, understanding grew. A consortium pilot named Velren learned to appreciate human persistence when a human instructor spent 10 hours teaching her evasive maneuvers. A weapons officer named Kixala realized humans weren't bloodthirsty when they carefully explained minimum force protocols and rules of engagement. And the humans learned too. They learned patience with beings who weren't physically strong. They learned to explain concepts that seemed obvious to them, but were alien to others. They learned to work with species who thought differently, moved differently, communicated differently. Commander Jiwan found herself in command of a mixed fleet. Half the ships were human, half were consortium. She had never imagined leading aliens in battle, but here she was, trying to forge hundreds of different species into a unified fighting force. Remember, she told her officers in a meeting, we're not fighting to conquer. We're fighting to protect. Everyone behind us, every colony and homeworld is depending on us, human and alien alike. Private Dae-hyun, who had accidentally injured an alien during the Earth visit, became friends with that same alien. They trained together, and the alien learned to understand human strength. You're not monsters, the alien said one day. You're just very, very scary when you need to be. Dr. Hyjin worked with scientists to analyze the Devourers. They found weaknesses, patterns, vulnerabilities. It turned out the Devourers weren't invincible.